What is up, gamers? Welcome back to another Predecessor video. I want to talk about reputation in Predecessor. Most importantly, I want to talk about toxicity and what is the best way for Predecessor to combat toxicity. And I actually wrote a little something here that I want to go over, and I'm actually going to try to explain it at the best of my abilities. For pred devs, hopefully they see this and they're like, you know what, I like this idea. I think there's a lot to it, and I think it's going to allow us to have a lot of levers to deal with toxicity, to make sure the people that are being reported are being dealt with, and that the players who are reporting them get to witness that something is happening, something is being made, something is being actioned, and the game is being driven to a less toxicity heavy kind of MOBA, which is bound to happen. It's the nature of the game, it's the nature of the genre, where there's going to be a lot of toxicity, but there's a lot of ways you can make sure that these people do not get away scot-free. Alright, so this is the little Excel sheet that I have written up, and there's actually a lot of info here that I want to start and talking about. Let's go at the top left of it and kind of mention what those tiers are. Alright, so I actually changed up a little bit so you guys can better understand this before I get into it. So there's basically 5 tiers, being great standing, good standing, okay standing, bad standing, and poor standing. I think having 5 tiers is going to allow us to kind of spread the perks of being in between one of these or being in a specific tier. So A tier is the best one, that is 100 plus. There's probably going to be sort of a little bit of overcap as well, so you can be sitting at maybe 120, 125. So just in case sometimes you lose your cool for one game, you don't just drop down straight to B tier, but maybe you just lose all the excess of overcap points or overcap reputation points that you had, so it still would be good in good standings, but of course now you're gonna need to overcap again once more, right? So maybe an overcap right here for the best tier, but then you of course have the other tiers from 50 to 99, that would be in good standing, from 0 to 49, that would be in okay standing, and then you go down to the bad standings, which is minus 50 to minus 1, and minus 100 to minus 49, which would be the worst one. Now, before we figure out what each tier would do, in my personal opinion, again, this is only my personal opinion, before we figure out what they would do, how do you lose or gain reputation would probably be the best way to go about it, right? What makes me gain or what makes me lose reputation? And there's actually quite a few things that they couldn't implement, and probably even more down the line, but the ones that I can really think of are these right here. So of course, the first one is commendations / honor system. This is a big one. This is probably the biggest one. They don't have it yet, so of course they wouldn't be able to implement it yet. But what this would mean is after a game is played, you can maybe give 1 to 3 commendations to your team. You can have different commendations like played really well, was great at shot calling, didn't give up, was pretty chill to talk to. Anyway, they would like filter those by different kind of things, and if they feel like somebody was you know, worth commending, they would do it, and that would maybe give you a reputation boost to your account. Now this is abusable by the players, where you can give multiple reputations to the same player, so it would boost his reputation. So the best way to do that would be to limit how many reputations you can give to someone every day. In League, I believe you can only give 1 reputation to the same player a day, so that is one way to do it. But you can also make it so you cannot gain too much reputation a day from commendations, to make sure that you're not getting a reputation boost for basically abusing the system or something like that. And also, these could be just hidden values that Predecessor doesn't even need to mention or talk about. And personally, I actually much rather have the values hidden, not known to people, with how much commendations give and stuff like that. But the fact that commendation would give you an increase in reputation, that would generally be good, and I think it would be a good step moving forward for them if they plan to hitting some sort of reputation system. The second one is pretty simple. It is just over time after you play a specific amount of games. If people are playing games and they are playing just against actual people, not AI, because you cannot really be toxic against AI. If you're being toxic against AI, you have some issues. I'm telling you right now, if you are talking shit in AI matches to to some bots that cannot even read your messages, you need help, and I'm telling you that one right now. But of course, this is only going to be for actual PvP lobbies. You play maybe 10 games, you start getting some reputation and stuff like that. Of course, if you're not being toxic, right? If you're getting reports into those and the reports are actually being dealt with, which is our next point, then of course you wouldn't probably get reputation if you're being toxic in those games that you're playing. I want to go to point 3, which is reporting offenders who end up getting dealt with. That is a big one. You want to make sure that the people that had to endure somebody being toxic or hostile towards them, or even trolling, or just inting, stuff like that, you want to reward them for their patience, for still playing the game, still considering reporting them and making sure they are being dealt with. So getting some sort of reputation boost there could also be nice, because you're making sure that newer players, existing players, do not get to experience what you had to experience, because you've got them reported and the devs actioned it, which is kind of what you want, and I think what the devs also want. So those are the ways you gain reputation. The ways you would lose reputation, the only thing I can think of is, of course, when you do something bad, such as griefing, trolling, AFKing, being toxic, and stuff like that. Of course, just saying and that somebody is griefing or trolling and stuff like that wouldn't just lower your reputation. The report needs to be actioned by the devs. So if they see a report of, hey, this guy was talking shit, they then review the chat logs. They figure out how severe the chat logs were, and then they action a deduction of reputation based on what they see fit, right? In my opinion, that's the best way to do it. You don't want people to just report somebody, and because they reported somebody, they just lose reputation, because then you can get into mass reporting someone to lower their standing, which is not something that you would want. So it's very abusable. It's an abusable system if you do it that way. So that's why it should be based on what the devs seem fit. Now I want to talk about the most important one, and that is the perks you get for being in a specific tier. Now, of course, this is just a perk system that I made up, completely made up, but I think it would make a lot of sense, and I want to talk a little bit about it. As you can see, it's all over here. If you want to pause it, read it yourself, you can, but I am going to go through it by myself and explain the reasons behind this. So at the top, you can see it's the same thing, about 100, 50, 0, 1, minus 50, and minus 100, and all being tiered to A, B, C, D, and F. Those are the tiers, but down under, those are the perks that each tier would have. We start off from the first row, and that's just amber gain. It's pretty simple. You just gain more amber the higher tier you are. The normal values that you get right now of amber would be in C tier, so you just get default amber gains at C tier, and then it goes up by 25%, or down by 25%, depending on the tier you go up to or the tier you're going down to. Going down to 50% amber gain at F tier and 150% amber gain at A tier. It's just a nice little boost of amber for you to unlock more things in the game. The second one is, of course, a question mark. I think it would be good if they add it, but if they add it, they need to make sure they implement it in this system, and that is voice chat. You only want to give voice chat to probably people above 50, so in the first two tiers. And then I don't think you want to give voice chat to anyone under 50, and definitely no one under 0. So I think that is why it's highlighted red, or in a background of red. That means that is just generally a no, right? No, you don't get access to this. Third one, text chat. Pretty simple. I think text chat is more volatile, so I think it's fine to give it to people at 0 or above, and then not give it to anyone at 0 and below. So for that reason, I just moved it 1 to the right, and I think that makes a lot of sense. The fourth one might be a bit controversial, but the good thing about controversial things is they don't need to mention them. I think this is a great idea. It might piss some people off, but Pred can just straight up do this and never mention that this is a system in place, because I think it's a very good system. It's going to trigger more the people at the lower end who don't get their roles. They're like, why do I never get my role? And stuff like that. But this is a higher odds chance of getting your role. So, of course, it's not 100%, it's not at 0%, it's just a higher or lower chance. If you go at C tier, again, it's the normal odds, so it's 50-50. If you're contested by one person, it would be 50% and 50%. And depending on how many tiers you fall, you might lose 2%, you might lose 5%. I don't know. It's not my choice to decide. I just think it's a good idea that the people in the higher tiers have a slightly higher chance of getting their preferred role. Even if it's not much, it is still very good to have, because it makes sure that you want to stay on the good side of the tree rather than the bad one. Alright, the next two are also pretty simple. That is Twitch drops, the things that have been happening on Twitch, where you can just watch a stream and get drops, and also code redeemables. I believe there was a code redeemable for a spray that you could get at one point, like about a week or 2 weeks ago. Both of these things, you can just blacklist people from getting them, and the way to blacklist it is by making sure, hey, these people at specific tiers do not get the privilege of getting rewards from Twitch drops. They do not get the privileges from getting rewards from code redeemables. So we're just not going, if they are flagged as a C tier, or if they are flagged as a D tier or an F tier, they just don't get rewards. And I think that's completely fair. Why would you give rewards or free stuff to people who are clearly doing bad in the community? My next point is ranked play. I think it is completely fine to allow people above 0 to play ranked till their heart's content. It doesn't matter to me, but anyone below 0, anyone in the negative should not be able to play ranked, or at least be very much limited to playing ranked a specific amount of times a day. The idea I brought up here was that D tier only gets to play 3 ranked games a day, while F tier does not get to play ranked at all. Of course, just numbers that I made up. They can do whatever they want. I'm just giving the idea out there because I think it is a very good idea. The second to last point is system reports. What this means is when you report somebody, the devs get to see your reports. When it's normal system reports, it's just the normal way of them doing reports. I don't know how they do it, but my guess is if Tom, for example, has 50 reports and Mike has 20 reports, Tom would be higher up on the list of getting reviewed by the devs, so he'll probably be higher up, and that's probably the normal system. Once you start falling down tiers, your reports become flagged, which would mean they would be higher priority, which would mean a report would probably count as 2 reports, or 3 reports, or even 4 reports. So like when you get a report and your account is already flagged, it would count up as more reports. So your number in the end would end up being higher, although you had less reports. And that would kind of like flag your account like, hey, this guy is still being cringe, he's still being an asshole, he's still just doing bad things. So we're just gonna keep this account at the higher end of the report list of people and make sure that this guy is still getting dealt with. And finally, another system that's not quite in the game yet, but I think it is planned for sure, is quests. I don't know if quests are gonna be daily. I don't know if they're gonna be weekly, if they do plan to add them. But I had a nice idea here where you just get a specific amount of quests depending on what tier you're in. F tier only gets a quest maybe a week. D tier gets 2 quests a week. C tier gets 3 quests a week. B tier gets 4 quests a week, and A tier gets 5 quests. But one of them actually gives plat, which I think would be a really nice thing. And I'm like 99.9% sure that is just going to give amber, right? These quests will probably only give amber, maybe a spray here and there. But I think if they have one quest a week that gives you some plat because you're in A tier, I think that would be really, really smart for them. They wouldn't be giving too much, of course, maybe like 100 or 200 plat a week. But hey, that's at least the privilege of being in A tier, being a good person, and making sure that you have a reason to be up at A tier, right? Now, of course, OMEDA can add more to these. They can remove some of these. I think these are the very simple ones that I could think of. Some of them have a lot of thought behind them, and I think they add a lot to it. I think it is actually a very good template if they do want to use something like this. I hope they use something like this because I think it has a lot of positives and very few negatives, if any, if I'm being honest. I also want to know what you guys think about this thing. What would you guys add? What would you guys remove? What do you guys like and what do you guys not like? But before we end today's video, some questions that you guys might have that I also want to answer are in this little Excel sheet down here. So I want to go over them right now. I've mentioned some of these, but I'm going to mention them again. Number one is reports need to be dealt with to lower a player's reputation. The more severe the devs find the offense to be, the more reputation a player should lose. You don't just get to report somebody and they lose reputation. That is abusable. You don't want that to be abusable. Number two, a visible standing of your reputation in-game. I spelled reputation wrong. Actually, I didn't spell it wrong. There's just no space. But a visible standing of your reputation in-game should be visible for yourself on your profile tab whenever they plan to add that. So you know where you are in the reputation scale and you know how you're doing. I think that's completely fair. Whilst also having the option to make sure your reputation is also visible or hidden for other players to see. So if you can check other players' accounts, other players' profiles, you would have the option to hide or show your reputation. If you're not ashamed to show your reputation, you would just show it. But if you're ashamed, probably because it's low, I think it's fine to hide it as well. It's up to you. I have no issues with it. I think it would be fine. It would also be a little bit funny if somebody's hiding their reputation because they probably assume that they are pretty low in their reputation, and I think that's just a funny little thing. Number three is something I mentioned on number one, and that is any abuse system should be prevented, such as mass reporting with no actual proof. The big thing here is that I think from what I wrote in this thing, there's not really going to be any ways to abuse the systems I mentioned. However, there could be. I could be not paying attention too much to what I wrote and forgot about something, but I think that's just something that the devs need to figure out themselves. It's not really on me. I'm just giving the idea out there. And of course, any systems that are abusable, it's going to be bad. It's just a given, right? That's very obvious. And of course, they want to make sure that this reputation thing is fair and it's also justified. Number four is probably one of your favorites that I'll have probably written in here, and that is just getting an in-game message of your report being dealt with and actioned in the main menu. Probably either a pop-up or even just a notification little bubble somewhere in the main menu where you can just click a bell and you see all the notifications, such as server maintenance, such as a friend request and stuff like that, and also when a report has been actioned by a dev. And I think that would be nice because that means that the players that you're reporting are actually being dealt with, and now you finally know about it. And finally, number five is for competitive integrity, and that is if a player that your reported was cheating, trolling, or anything, and they got dealt with in ranked, and you end up losing RP from it, which is, I believe, ranked points. Another word for it is just MMR. I think you should be compensated with a specific amount of MMR based on either how much you've lost or just generally like 20% more than, or 25% more than you actually would have lost. And the people who won with a cheater would also lose that MMR because I think that would also be justified. So basically a sort of system that makes sure that there is competitive integrity in ranked and people who are cheating are not boosting their friends and also not making your life miserable and losing unfair amount of VP when it was out of your control, because I know that will piss a lot of people off. That was it for today's video, gamers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little bit of a different video. We're not really showcasing gameplay. I sometimes really much rather do videos like these where I'm just talking and just saying what I feel like a lot of people have been saying, but hopefully showcase it to a lot more people, a lot more eyes, and possibly even get the devs' attention out of it, and they get to see the idea I have at least, and maybe take some ideas from it as well for the systems they're probably working on. Hopefully they're working on. But yeah, thank you all for watching, guys. I am very happy with today's video. This is something I wanted to really talk about, and hopefully you guys let me know how you feel about Toxicity and Pred, and also what you think about this little system in quotation marks that I came up with and that I hope that Pred does at least look at. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. I barely say it, but please do hit that sub button down below if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed the gameplay content and stuff like this. And I will catch you guys tomorrow for another Predecessor gameplay video. Peace out, gamers, and have a good one.